Some crazy stuff. I used to write about mosquitoes. I've read like I mean, it's really crazy. So, you read someone like J.K. Rowling's Harry Potter series, and you're wondering what was going on through their mind when they started writing the Harry Potter series, because it kind of like opens up a whole other world to you, that like, whole other alternative world that you didn't know existed. So I think that is the one thing that really makes me like reading fiction.
Today we are delving into the world of spoken word poetry, a quarter marathons, books and plants, courtesy of the one and only the Odie. So the Odie, it's a pleasure.
It's a pleasure having you guys around here.
And thank you for letting us in your space. Okay, first things first. Without the roles, without the tags, who's the Odie?
Basically the Odie is, I mean, I'm just someone who I just love life.
Yeah.
And I think growing up and interacting with people and seeing how all this crazy stuff that happened to life, so it made me have a really positive approach to life. And so I don't just live, I actually just kick life. So I'm alive and I kick it. So the kicking part is now the like how I live life. So I delve into hobbies, I explore new stuff, I go check out new routes. I just explore life and discover new things, and the things that I really like, I do them passionately. So basically that is just who I am.
Odie, that's brilliant. No wonder you are a poet. That's a great introduction. Without using man-made titles, but who you are inside.
Like that is the person, that is what makes up the Odie.
Yeah. We'll start the journey with the whole spoken word.
And how this started.
Yeah, how this started.
So spoken word, I've always been a lover of literature. And so books, fiction, and everything written has always been a very close thing to my heart, because growing up, again, because me and my siblings, the age difference between me and my bro, I think 7 years. So half the time I was alone in the house. So books were like keeping me company. And so I started reading at a very early age. And then later I started interacting with spoken word poetry, like Kenneth B, Mufasa the poet. There were guys like Teardrops. So I started messing up with their pieces, listening to their craft, going even to KNT when I was in high school, interacting with people doing spoken word. And back then spoken word was a really new form of art. So and so not very many people were interacting with it and understood what it was. So that is how I started interacting with poetry, the spoken word beat. But I used to write when I was in high school. In high school, I used to write a lot of bullshit. I still have a manuscript after that from way back when I used to write poetry for my classmates when they are writing letters to their girlfriends. So I've always been just writing stuff, and so then a few years ago, so how I started, how the Odie Tales was born. So a year, or is it a year? 2023. We are in 25. So in 24, I had a bunch of pieces that I'd written, but I never really knew what to do with them. And so I met this person. Shout out to her, Anitoine Kesa. So she told me, see, you try and record some of these things that you're always writing about, and see how that goes. So and then so that is how the Odie Tales was born. And so we started doing stuff. So initially when I started the Odie Tales, I because I'm also passionate, really passionate about sports, so I just wanted to talk about sports and tell people sports stories. But along the way, I figured, people appreciate life in very many different ways, and so I didn't want to really constrain my art to just talking about one particular thing. And so I just going with the flow. So if today I wake up at 1 in the morning and whatever is in my mind, I want to write something about love, I'll write about love. If kesho I want to talk about a trail that and the experience that it was in the Nairobi Expressway Marathon, I'll write about that and talk about that. So eventually I've just been incorporating a lot of stuff. Sometimes I write about, because I was doing a piece jana, it was purely just about men's mental health, nini, because that is also a subject that's really close to my heart. And you see how men really, I mean, they struggle juggling life, and there's a lot of expectations that come with that. And we've also been conditioned to not talk as much. So I wrote something about that, posted it jana. Of course, then I wrote something about mapenzi, because love runs the world. So.
For sure.
So I did that. And so if you like run through the pieces that I've recorded and posted out on the Odie Tales Spotify, it's like it's a mixture of everything. And I'm also really new at this, so I'm also just trying to just tell my story in my small ways, and hopefully it inspires someone, and more people can do it. And just follow your passion and do it, and see how far it can take you, and how many people you can inspire while you're at it. And so that is how the Odie Tales was born. So basically, it's a really young thing, but I've been interacting with poetry and art all through my life. That's just this bit of now writing pieces and recording them and posting them into something new to me as well. I'm also trying to grow into it.
To navigate through it.
Yeah.
First of all, the manuscript. I think you give us a little peep on it.
The one I used to write when I was in high school. It's still here.
That will be interesting.
Some crazy stuff I used to write about mosquitoes. I've read like I know there was a friend of mine. Like she was in Kenya for the first time, and then she's in Kilifi, and then one morning she's complaining about the mosquitoes were biting her toes, and so she was wondering how much blood they can draw from just biting her toes. And so one day I just wrote.
It inspired something. It inspired a whole piece. That's interesting.
So I mean, just random stuff. You see when you see how my mind works at times. Like you wake up in the morning, because me mostly I'm an early morning person. So I'll sleep at 8, but I'll be awake at 11, maybe 2 in the morning. Then what do? Either read a book or just write about something. And so it's easier when the first thing that was on your mind when you woke up ndo unaandika. And so that's why sasa unajipata umeandika vitu za kiajabu. So basically so I'll show you kitabu. It was a diary from Toyota Kenya that I got from my brother-in-law. So I used to write stuff I put it. And I've carried it all through. And then there was also another cousin of mine who was into poetry. So the thing we used to do back then was, you see, ukisikiza pieces za Mufasa as a teardrops, wote ni wanoma, but like Mufasa is more refined. I'm not saying that Nani is not refined. He is, but Mufasa sana anafanya pieces za kizungu nini, alafu Nani ni Swahili Shakespeare. So all of them are crazy, but so maybe I may cut Indo yake, Indo yake. So me and my cousin were like that. So me I'd write pieces in English, he would write pieces in Sheng and rhyme like hell. So we used to just keep on writing and share pieces to back and forth. I mean, because we grew up around people who are just growing up around books, and then just people who appreciate literature. I think that kind of affects how you view life and how you approach life. So interacting with so much literature at that age inafanya to, I think maybe ina appeal to some creative sense in your brain, and so kuna vile tu uta grow up different kidogo.
For sure. Cause environment
muhimu sana.
Ina play a big role in somebody's how they shape somebody's thinking,
how they approach life.
Sure. Since you have said the Odie Tales, it's like a year now, like official.
Since we started like a year.
Are we going to see some albums? Are we going to see you on stage with Mufasa or something?
Maybe not, but I mean, right now I'm at a point where I'm just taking it easy, and then you see, with my work pressure, as in I don't get to do this as much as I would like, because like for the past 3 months I've not been in this house because I was away for work. So you see, then now you cannot be able to indulge as much as you want. But I think before end of the year I want to like be intentional. So maybe release 3 pieces a week, write and record 3 pieces a week. So I want, because people used to call me and my sister used to call me and aniuliza, hey, unatuweka sana, when are you dropping the next one? So namwambia, hey manzi, it's crazy where I am right now, but as soon as I get back, I'm dropping pieces for you guys. So then it shows me that people already listening to whatever poetry that we put out there, whatever the pieces that we put out there, what we already wanna mess now. So then I want to be your consistency. I want to consistently be able to write maybe 2 or 3 pieces a week consistently at the end of the year. Right now, I think my goal for this is just, this is something I love, and so I just want more people to be able to be listening to the Odie tales, so we can tell stories.
Like to grow your audience.
Yeah.
And the main reason for these pieces, is it to inspire, to heal?
Yeah, I mean it's really to inspire people to be better human beings, and to be, I mean, to approach life differently, and to live quality lives, and to embrace Ubuntu. Like, because you see, when you do a piece about love, and love is really a really wide topic, because it can be hiyo mapenzi tu ya kawaida, it can be father son, it can be just how even hata venye mabro wana look up for each other, they look out for each other, even how you come through for your boys, nini, and that is love, and that is how it makes the world a better place. And then saa zingine we just write about whatever we do for fun, cycling ama running, and maybe through that story someone else gets inspired and maybe they start their own fitness journey.
Exactly.
Because people do these things for different reasons. You see, when there are people who maybe the only reason they started running ni ati maybe alikuwa anataka kukata weight, and so when you've done kukata your weight, then si hauna purpose. But beauty about some of these things ni ati like one purpose fits into another. So probably like for me, when maybe we'll talk about it later, but you see the reason, maybe probably when I started at a cycling, cycling ndo obsession ya kwanza nilikuwa nayo, physical cycling. So when I started, it was just to get away from the house. I was just trying to explore the outdoors. And then you see, eventually you meet amazing people, go over cycling, you discover kumbe watu wanaweza chase medals, and so you jump into that. Eventually you discover these bicycle tours, and so you can plan a tour, just cycle to wherever, Moshi, Tanzania, and run marathons and come back. So hivyo inafanya, so when you tell these stories, people actually wana feel ni kama ni vitu za kawaida, because there's a time tulikuwa tuna cycle tukienda Murang'a iko tu hapa. So you go to Murang'a, barabara ziko sawa, but huko kwa village watu wanasema, watoto wadogo wanasema mzungu. So me, I was amazed, because why would they want to associate sport ya kawaida kama cycling na wazungu? It means it's not out there, it's not spoken about enough. So people don't know ati hizi vitu za kawaida, wanazivi kama vitu foreign, ama ati hizi ni hobby za maybe mtu mwenye ako na pesa, but normal people can do these things. So I think for me, majorly, that is why I tell the stories I tell, so people can listen to them and maybe try inspire huyo mtu mmoja. And when you're able to change one person in the world, see, we change the world one person at a time. So basically for me, that is it. And then to people get entertainment nini, because hii world manze ni serious sana. Our life is already tough enough. So whenever we can to smile. So if I'm able to put a smile on someone's face, juu piece nilieka kwa Odie Tales ilimbamba, akaisikiza ama anaisikizanga kabla alale. I mean, see, I've done my purpose as a human being. So for me, that's hiyo ndo ile the joy that I derive from doing this.
Let's say somebody wants to start doing such a thing. What is the one piece of advice you'd give them?
I can't say that I'm at a point where I can't kid myself that I'm an authority on matters spoken word poetry, but I mean, I've been a fan of this particular type of art for a while, because but again, this is not something that yenye utaambia mtu ataanza aje, but because you see most of spoken word artists at some point then they start releasing wanaanza kufanya rap because sasa when they embed their art na maybe kitu kama hip hop nini rap, then maybe ina get to a bigger, larger audience, as opposed to when it's just someone speaking and maybe some background sounds hapo. So I think bado in Kenya, I don't know about the industry out there, but I think in Kenya not very many of us mess up enough with spoken word poetry. But I think the purpose of art, aside from maybe because saa zingine people do it to make money, because of course pia kuna hiyo bit, but the purpose of art ni ati we just release your art, release to art yako, speak about stuff that you see really affect the society nini. If it's kind of feel like your voice inaweza make impact na umeweka in an artistic form and you want people to listen to that, probably ukikuja tu uanze kulecture watu hata watalala, but maybe because it rhymes and there are metaphors in it nini, so someone will hataisikia and then something sticks with them hivyo. So for someone who wants to do this and they feel like they have it in them to do it, just do your thing. Yani wewe andika pieces zako, record, play for anyone who wants to listen. Eventually people will listen to it. If you produce quality stuff, see what wataanza they'll want more, and then maybe someone will pay to listen to you. Because nilibuy the first album ya nani, nilibuy ya Mufasa, kunaitwa Son of a Sun. He actually has a book pia nje. So Son of a Sun is a really great album. Na there's one piece that's hiyo ni album ilireleasiwa in 2012, and there's one piece hapo ilikuwa inaitwa Before My Daughter Is Born, yenye nimesikizanga the number of times nimesikiza hiyo piece on repeat ni mara yani siwezi count, I lost count. And the reason is because whatever Mufasa was talking about kwa hiyo piece, something that is really close to my heart. And so you see that just through his words ali manage ku capture attention yangu nini yangu to your level. And so all these years later I can still I think hata naweza narrate half your piece, ile tu maybe naweza sahau kidogo, but I can still ile word for word naweza jua hiyo piece venye Mufasa alikuwa anaisemanga. So I think that is now the beauty of art and nini.
Apart from akina Mufasa, is there any other external like poet who has influenced you in this journey?
I mean, other than you see akina Mufasa, it's just that they do spoken word poetry, but at the very primary stage, all these guys are poets, and so there are very many people that have been reading their poetry. Now that becomes like just messing up with people who've written poetry. Even akina Shakespeare, I mean, that guy is a poet, and so when you read their pieces, there are very many poets hapo nje. Ni vile tu sasa now you see when you speak it up it becomes spoken, but at the core of it there's poetry at the core. And so I've really gotten inspiration from interacting with a lot of poetry books nini that were and even music, because at a music piece it's poetic, just the way it's arranged nini. But the beauty of spoken word poetry ni ati it defies some of this, you see, these laid down procedures ati it has to be a verse and it has to rhyme and there have to be metaphors and similes and you have to do it, the structures, which sometimes I think for people of my generation we really don't like. These structures are like you have to wake up in the morning at 6 and you have to brush your teeth and eat breakfast at 6 and go to work nini. So hizo structures inafanyanga life inakuwa boring. So the one thing I like about spoken word poetry ni it defies structures, and so it's more free. So it's break hizo hizo nini mingi, so it's more free, so people are actually able to experiment with whatever works nini. So saa zingine you just tell your story, no rhyme, no nini, just your story, and it's very beautiful poetry. So I think for me, whatever has really shaped how I look at poetry, just from the books I've been interacting with since I started learning how to read, the books I've read, the poetry books I've read, the music I've seen people write, and listening to that, and you kind of infuse all that. Over time, it also becomes a part of who you are. Yeah.
Any notable writers?
For poetry,
Yeah.
I think the one person who really stands out as a poet ni Shakespeare. Yeah. Plants for me ni vitu zinafanya spaces other than just the aesthetics, so they make your spaces really beautiful and they give you that natural feel in the space. So and then again, corner plants, these are things that you really actually have to take care of. So you have a reason to come back home kila siku and take care of these things, and when they thrive, there's a way it affects your mood. So when I come here and I find that my plants are thriving and I feel really good. So that is one thing I've picked up from since I started adopting plants in Nini. So I'm always just getting random exotic plants. Some I get them from my friends, Nini, and I'm always intrigued at how when people see these plants and some want to start being plant people, and how they're excited about this journey. So plants for me an essential part of who we are.
What would you say is the connection between books and spoken word?
I mean, I think books and spoken word. So I mean, I don't want to say the connection between books and spoken word. I want to say the connection between books and poetry. I mean, because that's it. Yeah. So I think in its very traditional sense, poetry was just written, and I kind of feel like poetry is really a great part of our cultures of who we are. Long before we started writing prose, most of the things, even in the African tradition itself, most of those things were covered in song and poetry. It was just songs and it was just poetry. Even for the kawaida ceremonies of initiation, even in the traditional sense, if you look at African settings, they used to capture their whatever their essence in. It was written down in poetry form, and this was shared in the evenings when people are meeting, and that is how their traditions were passed from generation to the next, so through poetry. So I'd say books really, what can I say? They conserve what we consider to be really close to our hearts. So through books, we're able to conserve poetry, and also through books, it gives you a window into understanding something that happened 100 years before maybe you were born. So, and because someone wrote it down, so you're able to interact with it right now, and you kind of get the perspective and really understand how things used to work back then, and maybe see the similarities in what we're doing right now. And so it's a way of documenting. So I think books play a really crucial role in terms of documenting the poetry, which is just documenting our lives as it is, because our lives are just poetic. I mean, life in itself is just poetry. So that is what I'd say is the connection. So not many the poetry that we do right now, see, a lot of it is just written and not performed. So now when people start performing that, then now that's why we introduce the issue of spoken word. And I think it's a way, because most people don't want to read. It's easier if you listening to it. So it's better actually when all this spoken word poetry thing started. I think it made more people appreciate poetry. Yeah. So I think that is what I'd say is the connection between the world of books and the world of poetry. Which, yeah, if you look at it deeply, it's kind of like it's the same thing. Yeah. Fiction books. I mean, I think because other than just reading for maybe for exams, most of these books I read them for fun. So, and I believe that fiction, if you look at the world of fiction books, I mean, it's really crazy. So, you read someone like J.K. Rowling's Harry Potter series, and you're wondering what was going on through their mind when they started writing the Harry Potter series, because it kind of like opens up a whole other world to you, that like a whole other alternative world that you didn't know existed. So I think that is the one thing that really makes me like reading fiction. And then other than just fiction, other than just fantasy, some of hizo vitu ni like the things you can actually relate to. So fiction for me is the way to go, and that's why I think most of what I have is heavily fiction. Like if you've read this book's about George R.R. I mean, it's crazy. Why would you? How would one person write 7 books? The volume moja inashana hivi 700 pages, and still go on and on and on. I mean, that guy had to be extremely creative. So I'm also intrigued by just how the authors think and how they are able to create all these alternative universes and tell stories in very unique ways. And so I think fiction, the ultimate book. I know some people don't agree with this, because I've been in forums that I was told that if you won't read fiction, then you don't read at all. But you see, the reason we read is different. So if you're reading for fun, like for me, most of the times I'm reading for fun, then I think fiction is the ultimate read for people like us.
So when you say you read for fun, do you read to escape or understand the world more deeply?
So I mean, one thing is, you see the way you just sit down and watch a good movie, watch a good show. So it's the same thing with me. So you sit down with a well-written story, and you really get into it. So one thing is, it gives you insights, because you see you're running through someone else's thought processes. And so see, normally wanasemanga ati kama hujawahi tembea, you think your mom is the best cook. So you might think your imagination ndio inakwanga iko sawa until you run through someone else's, and then utashinda, oh, so this is actually possible. And I think that is why for most of us, when you jaribu if you ever tried like watching a movie that based off of a book, half the time you'll just be pissed, because you think they could have done better. You kind of feel like you were lied to, and it's because I think the director of the movie probably just working with his own imagination, which is totally different from whatever you're getting when you're reading the actual book. So I think interacting with very many authors and getting their perspectives of different things in life kind of helps you it gives you insights into their world and how they approach stuff. And so now you become a better person, because you understand maybe the same thing but through very many perspectives. And so I think it really also sharpens your mind and opens up your mind to also be able to understand, to appreciate how different and how varying very many other aspects of life actually are.
Reading fiction really grows emotional intelligence, empathy. You really are able to look at things in different perspectives.
And appreciate different perspectives, because it actually sharpens people who read. If you've interacted with people who read just for fun or for whatever reason, and people who don't, I don't want to say it, but I mean, you're a better person if you read. I believe that. So again, I could be wrong, but I just believe that people who read are better people than people who don't, because there's a lot of knowledge to be found behind these covers.
Something I read, it reduces the need for cognitive closure, which is the desire for a quick, definite, and stable answer. So somebody who hasn't read much just wants to
get the answer.
Get the answer. Doesn't want really unhandled.
To think different perspective, think about it, mull it over, tafuta answers from various people and see how they approach the same problem. So again, sasa you become narrow. But sasa if you've interacted with a lot of authors, then sasa your mind is open, your world is open. So biases, vitu kaa hizo tu hautakuwa nazo. you see there's a way, if you grew up in a homogeneous environment where it's just you na people from your own tribe ama hivyo, so you see that those stereotypes zenye wasa wana bounce off, siongeleshani na sijui wakina nani wanafanyanga nini. But see, through books you're able to, as a kid and reading nini, those stereotypes hazitakusumbua, those biases won't be there because you're able to even read stories about someone from your community who was a outright jackass, and you interact with other people through literature nini, and it helps your perspective, so now you're very objective in how you interact, even your human interactions. So I believe that is the power that books have, really.
We'll see. Do you believe fiction holds deeper truths than facts sometimes?
I mean, yes, but but I mean, I don't believe that fiction holds deeper truth. I just believe that fiction gives you an alternative perspective. And so you see, when I'm an analyst, so suddenly when you're developing scenarios, see there's like the main line, the best case, worst case, main line, and then the nightmare scenario. So I think fiction now is the nightmare because facts zitakupea tu. I mean, data is good and facts are really good, but now that outside the box thinking is hiyo ndio inakonga ile kitu yenye ki happen sasa, inaweza kuwa na either devastating results, catastrophic, whatever, but that is the one thing that facts want to give you. And so that is now fiction in the world of books. That is now fiction because the author can just run with it, and maybe that is just whatever is in their wildest of imaginations. So in as much as you think that shit like that would not happen, but when it does, what happens when it does? So I believe so fiction for me just offers you an alternative, like an alternative scenario, an alternative explanation, or maybe just a different way of looking at something.
What shapes your beliefs more? Is it the books you read, people around you?
I mean, I'd say it's a little bit of everything you've said because I'm able to read about people's experiences in books, and I'm able also to observe them, maybe observe people and learn from who they are, how they approach life, how they do their things. You're able to learn from that, and then of course, but your environment, your upbringing, your experiences, they also shape your personality. So I'd say it's really a holistic thing. It's not that one thing might really shape your character. It's all of these things pamoja.
How do you balance when to use this knowledge that you have or when to just go with the flow, like your own feeling?
No, I mean, it will depend with this, with whatever situation we are talking about. Because you see, let's say a book like the Bible. The Bible, najua Kristo atakangi tukiongelelea, but you see, the Bible in itself ni kama like a manual on how people should live. The 10 commandments, you're supposed to do this. But again, if you look at just how human beings should live with each other, inherently there's a lot of there's a way you can just teach a kid to be a good person bila kumwambia ati maybe when you die you go to hell and unachomeka for the rest of your life. So you see, so that kid grows up akijuanga that being a good person, not for any other reason, you're just being a good person because human beings are supposed to be good people. Si ati umeambiwa ati kuna hellfire na kugojea mahali. So I'd say again pia there kuna guidelines pia zinasaidia, that inspiration that you can draw from a book like the Bible. So I think saa zingine tu you have to strike to balance. So you maybe the knowledge you have, maybe you've read somewhere ama nini, and that is why me I'm a fan of just reading widely. So you get from this perspective nini. So when you augment all this plus maybe your experiences, you're likely to make a more rational decision for whatever situation you found yourself in. So,
what does a well-lived life look like according to you?
I mean, a well-lived life for me would be, because then let me just say this, because I think for most of us, once you graduate campus, maybe you start a family, to probably we stop living, so tuna operate to until sasa ile siku yenye take your last breath and then you're buried. But for me a well lived life would be like you appreciate life, like you get to live your life. So that's why I'm always saying that people should have hobbies, like vitu tu zinafanya una smile, unaona. So for me a well lived life would be ile yenye kwanza you're in harmony with yourself kwanza. Juu unaweza kuwa wewe peke yako uko na my issues, so first you need to be comfortable with yourself, and then be in harmony with people around you, be in harmony with nature, and do the things you love. Na pia unajua hiyo the ability to like impact other people around you through just how you live your life. Yeah, ni kitu underrated sana, ni kitu too underrated. So for me that would be it, yeah, to be in harmony with the people in your surrounding, to be able to impact people, but also endeavor to live life every day. Ishi tu.
Just explained Taoism. Is there another you wish more people read?
I mean, I've been reading random books since I was like 5 years old, and I'm always kila siku na discover new authors when you're intrigued. So I mean there are very many authors out there. I mean it's a world of 7 billion people. I believe kuna 7 billion authors kwa hii life. So what I can say ni ati people should just endeavor to read more because niko sure hata kusema wale published authors ni wangapi in the world, and how many have we interacted with their works. So I believe kitu yote yenye imeandikwa yenye you can get your hands on, we soma. Books are amazing. I wouldn't want to give people like a prescription ati wasome sijui George R.R. because clearly that is who I love. Labda mimi napenda kusoma Dan Brown, but a good book is a good book. And there's someone like Chimamanda. When I read this Half of a Yellow Sun the first time, so I went nikanunua hii Americana, was her second book, and then she's a really good author. She's Nigerian, but along the way akaanza kuandika vitu zenye si agree nazo, unaona. Doesn't mean that sasa nikipata work yake yenye ni crazy ati sisomi, ni vile tu whatever she was writing initially tu ni kitu nilikuwa ninabamba, but along the way maybe beliefs zake zika change, so akaanza kuandika vitu zenye zinibambi. So that one can always change, but people should just read.
So with the last statement, do you think you can separate the art from the artist?
I mean, I've tried to, but I've tried to. So your judgment gets clouded. I would say it, but you see, there's something how you look at someone. I mean, you should endeavor as much as possible kujaribu separate the art from the artist, and I think that is why akina Frida McFadden, there's a friend of mine called Vicente De Paul, used to work with him. He writes books, but that is not his real name. That is his ghost persona. So the reason some of these authors they opt to do that, so that they can separate who they are from whatever they write. But ideally, I think in an ideal world, you should be able to separate the art from the artist. But you see, along the way, people start looking at you different, so you kind of think you're a freak. Someone like McFadden, the reason she hides near people read whatever she writes now, nashindwa hey, mama sawa. What's wrong with her? Is she alright? No. Because along the way, I think your character, unajua you live your character. That is what people interact with, so that is what they know. So it's really hard for people who interact with your content to separate you from the person that you are. So hata kuita na ile jina yako yenye umeficha, hata kuita na hiyo ghost name yako. So because that is the person they know. So it's ni murky area around up. But ideally, people should be able to separate those two.
After writing in English, you can fit colonialism through those structures, the same written one. But Gugu Adhiong wanted to say the only way to decolonize our minds is through writing in
literature in our own language.
Yeah. And that was the best way to do it. Now people always fight over who is right or who is wrong.
I mean, the danger would be that you limit the reach of your art. Because sasa if you write in Yoruba na tu it's a language only spoken in central Nigeria, it's only a handful of you guys, then what happens to a boy in Kenya who wants to like read your stories and get to understand whatever was happening in Nigeria at that time? So I think it danger of doing that. I mean, it's good for people to embrace culture zao and decolonize their mind, whatever that means. But but I mean, just write in a language that people, because the reason you're writing is because so as many people as possible in the world can interact with your works and get insights into how you guys were living, because it's an opening to your world you're giving to other people. So if you just want to contain it in that particular community peke yake, then I mean, it's logic of you writing in the first place. Military medals. So this one I was training with guys from India. And walinipea hii painting pia. And then hii 101 intelligence squadron na hii pia 102nd intelligence squadron ni GPC cell ya US Army. So pia kuna vitu tulikuwa tunafanya na wao. So the game hata hizo mapatch ni so hii fitness journey nilianza. I used to be a very lazy person kitambo. Before around 2016 nini ndo around 2017 nika stumble into cycling purely by accident. Juu kuna cousin yangu alikuwa cyclist, so he introduced me into your world ya cycling and then nikakuwa hooked. So yeye ndo mtu wa kwanza aliniletea, like alinisaidia kuimport my first bike. So I did cycling between 17, 18 and 20. Cycling sasa ndo ilikuwa like my first ever physical hobby, like a sport that I considered a hobby. It was cycling. I think ilinisaidia sana because all the free time I had nilikuwa sasa si niko kwa bike. So for me when I started cycling it was like an escape, because I was going through a phase. So cycling ilikuwa inanisaidia to get rid of these negative vibes nini and ku recenter pia compass yangu as a person. And so along the way nika meet really awesome people were introduced into the world of going for races, just random group rides, junk miling, doing bicycle adventures. I met really awesome friends kwa hiyo circle ya cycling. And then I think the epitome of my cycling journey ilifika around hii time ya corona, because then I was really happy because we created a community around cycling and people would just show up. People who've never done any physical activity would show up. We plan random rides, we go, and it's a huge crowd. And then around your time ya corona people were going through a lot. So I think pia ilisaidia through what, because me at the time already mimi nilikuwa nimeshakuwa seasoned cyclist, so I knew the routes, I knew what you need to do, like the do's and the don'ts for a beginner cyclist, the distances people can cover based on the level they're at kwa training nini yao. So I think tulisaidia watu wengi sana, and most people even who joined for maybe could lose weight nini, a few months later mtu anakuambia manze ibongalia hii picha and look at me now, the self esteem, people just feeling good about themselves. And so looking at it from that angle, hiyo time ikafanya nikaona the power that sports has. So I started nikaanza kuiona a bit different, and then around your time pia nikaanza sasa kukimbia, because I wanted to get better at cycling, so I needed to put in a few miles on the track nini. But the reason this happened ni I'll tell you a story. So this one time kulikuwa na cycling race in Kiambu. Farmers Choice ndo walikuwa wana event organizers. So mimi in my infinite wisdom I decided to cycle to the start line. So instead of, I was staying in Utawala hiyo time. So nimetoka Utawala hadi Kiambu nikicycle. And then nimefika kama wasa wanaflagiwa off. That was like my first ever cycling race that I attended. So alafu start line inaanza Kiambu town, and you see when you're going through towards Limuru from Kiambu town, it's all mlima going up. So nililemewa sana. Kuna kuna mdem cyclist anaitwa Dina alikuwa anajaribu kunisukuma, like ananiambia let's go Odie, usiachilie, twende. Nimejaribu kushikilia juu ni mdem ananiambia, but eventually nikaachilia. So nika feel that I don't put in enough effort, training effort, that is one. And then pia niko na hiyo ati because I'm a man, so hakuna mdem anaweza ni trash kwa hii sport. And so it changed venye mimi view sports generally. So after that incident, after nimetrashiwa na Dina huko mbele, I decided to start putting in some miles, yani kukimbia kidogo, to cross train so that I can get better, maybe cardio nini. And that is how I caught the bug, yeah, sasa running. So hivyo I started chasing medals nini. Then hapo just after corona, I was going through a phase tena. So again nini ikakwa escape for me. So I think during that year, because hata ukiangalia most of the medals that I have collected ni zilikuwa like, kuna time yenye nilikuwa naenda for every event, hata kama iko D, TZ, what, like I would go for any marathon tu, ilikuwa ni like I just want to get out of Nairobi. So that is how, and then you see, initially it was just an escape, and then along the way you meet really awesome people nini, you start, sasa your feelings sasa inakuwa ni like an addiction, so it becomes like your lifestyle, and so you have to do it kila siku. And when you've been doing it for a few years, kila mtu mwenye anataka kuanza kukimbia atakuja kuambia Odie, nataka kuanza kukimbia, hizi viatu ziko sawa nini. So because you've been doing it for a while, you have like you've learned stuff zenye maybe unaweza ambia, unaweza share na mabeshte wako ifanye maybe jani yao isiko difficult kama yako, kwa hiyo medal chasing nini. So that is how nilianza kukimbia. So tukaanza kuchase tu nini zote, that's all unasiko hapa. So some of what I have hapa ni like, this is cycling, this is triathlon, because I also tried triathlon. I think niko na medals tatu hapa za duathlon, I think, and triathlon. This is just cycling. The rest of these zingine zote ni just running. So 21 kilometers ndo the ultimate distance yenye mimi hufanya kwa hizo races. I've tried doing more, but I almost died this year because I'm 35. It was my birthday run, so tunakimbianga our ages, so I did 35 kilometers. I mean, I almost died on the 35th kilometer, but see, tuko hapa tuna enjoy the show. So I think that's it. I think this is something that really inanisaidianga it keeps me grounded pia. Running ni poa pia, inafanya itakusaidia to focus na vitu zenye hazisaidii. And then the running community, through hizi running communities I've met watu people who work out are just generally good people. So you meet very nice people kwa hizo circles, so pia imenisaidia ku network. So, and actually the person who made me start doing the Odie Tales, she's a cyclist and she also runs, and we met to kwa Stanchart Marathon during your mwaka. Randomly, I didn't even know her. So then that goes a long way to show you the power that just engaging in recreational sports has. I mean, competitive sports pia ni poa, but recreational sports for me too. There's a joke around these circles wanasemanga ati the ultimate dating site squeezing is running clubs. I don't know how true that is, but it's out there. Yeah. So that's it for me.